Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is February 21st, 2020, and we're doing a casual Friday Power E mini group meeting today. And I did want to let everybody know that when Jeffrey and I do these group meetings, the music in the background plays really low because of the Skype call that we're on that interferes with it. So sorry about that, but I haven't figured out a way around it. Anyhow, we got some interesting stuff to talk about today. And if you have any questions, there is a link at the bottom of the show page that you can use to shoot us a quick email, and we'll be happy to answer them on the air. And so today, Jeffrey's going to talk about some new enhancements that have been made to the momentum system, and we'll take your questions. And so, how are you doing today, Jeffrey?
Doing great.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna do a quickie review of the some of the enhancements that are popping into the Momentum Algo now, and we just want to make you aware of some new stuff and then how to utilize it. So, Bill, you got anything else to say?
Oh, I was going to go ahead and let you take it away there. I'm not sure if you're getting any echo or not, but I thought after you do your little discussion there, then maybe we could do a little bit of back and forth and look at a couple of things.
All right, yeah, that's fine. So let's go ahead and go to the slide that's the power target system with the three targets.
All right, there you go.
Okay, very good. So one of the new enhancements you're going to see as of this week is in the notes when the momentum system, the power target system, when you get a triggered entry, and we'll just kind of review the steps, but I'm going to give you a quickie idea of what's new. When we get a trade barrier alert and then we get a confirmed 1 minute close across that barrier, the algo computes out three targets. Now, we've had that built into the algo before, but one of the issues was it only gave out the one target at a time. Like it would hit the first target and then it would give you the next target and then so now it's computing all three targets at once, and that goes out in a system note uh, right at the time we get a confirmed entry. So that means that you now have the three targets going forward. Keep an eye that as soon as you get a confirmed entry, you're going to see the projection of the three targets. Now, the example I got here, I got some long examples, but that was a short example in the NQ. I think it was from yesterday or the day before. But so you're going to get a T1, T2, and T3. Those are the three targets. And so let's talk a little bit about how to really utilize these targets. I've mentioned before that I've mentioned in the last couple of trainings that one of the things I recommend is, well, first of all, everybody start off, you know, the best thing to do with any kind of a new system is start off at square one, trade it on sim for 2 weeks, right? Don't risk any capital, just trade it on sim for 2 weeks, follow it, track your stuff in a simple spreadsheet. You'll see how cool it is and how good it follows through. Today's a great example of, if you just followed the system today, we hit like all three targets and all of the momentum algos. Bill,
Actually, we hit it in the ES,
hit it.
and
The ES hit three targets today.
yeah, and then it looks to me like the YM and the NQ. They made it to target two, and then the trailing stop actually came up and got tagged, but the trailing stop today was a short, obviously, on all of them, and the trailing stop got tagged with a profit before it hit target three on NQ and YM.
Right.
And I'll pull that up here in a minute. I've got the software
Yeah.
running live, so we can look at that.
Great. Yeah. And so the point is that we get these targets and we get a high frequency that we're going to hit target one. All right, just keep that in your mind. That high frequency, more often than not, we hit target one. Uh, with pretty good frequency, we hit target two, and then there's days that we go full bore. We hit target three. You'll see days even. I think either yesterday or the day before was a day like this, where we get a target three projected, and the market gets to target one, target two, doesn't quite get to target three, but then after hours, price blows right through target three, right? Or goes right up to target during the day session. So one of the things I'm going to recommend that everybody do, follow the system on Sim for 2 weeks, get a feel for how it works, and then when you start and you when you start with your live account, I recommend just go in with one micro contract. The reason why is you can't really get banged up too much with one micro contract, even with this momentum system. But one of the things is this system uses wider stops. You're going to see you can't just go gangbusters in, when you first start off with this and place these wide stops, because we could hit a little uh, losing streak in the market where we have a couple days in a row where some of the wide stops get hit consecutively, and that's a real bummer. But the and you're betting large, you're likely to hit some of these big stops, and you're likely to just give up and quit because you'll be gun shy. The following, you didn't give the system a chance to make itself, correct itself. But anyway, start off with one micro contract. Maybe spend a month just following with one micro contract. Now, so what do you do with one micro contract with three targets? Well, you've got different ways you can play this. So in the very beginning, just to get your feet wet, go in, drop a micro contract in when we get the simple 1 minute close past the alert barrier, right? This is a super simple mechanical uh, algo to follow. You don't have to worry. You don't have to look at your charts. You don't have to worry about moving averages. Nothing like that. When we get the alert, then you get a 1 minute trigger, and the system notes confirms that. So even if you're not even looking at a chart, you'll notice that the instantly that note goes in there saying a confirmed entry, and you could go, oh, I'm gonna jump in. Like you wouldn't even have to be looking at your chart. So you'll get that alert in the software. So when you take that super simple mechanical entry just on one micro contract, you place your wide stop and you just let the market do its thing. And like I said, high frequency we hit target one. All right. So in the beginning, just put your limit target orders in at target one. Just hit target one a bunch, build up a little risk capital there for yourself, and just get a feel for how the market you will typically drift into target one, or sometimes it leaps into target one. And then month two, you go to two contracts, and then you can start you know take one off at the first target and one off at the second target, right? So on and so forth. Now, as you build size with the micro contracts, let's say you get up to 4 contracts, I recommend that you play this system a little bit defensively, and the way to do that is you take half off at the first target. So let's say you get to well, let's say you're even at 3 contracts. Take 2 off at your first contract, then let the remaining contract run. Then you have the option. Do you want to take it off at target 2? You want to take it off at target 3? You want to just let it run all day with the trailing stop? Okay. On gangbuster days, that's the way to go. The trailing the wide system trailing stop, the trailing stop take you out, you can get much bigger gains because the market, we get these big super long range days. So you have some leeway. So one thing I want to stress is, don't think, okay, well, I got to do 4 contracts, and I got to take a contract off at 1, target 2, target 3, and no, you can break it up a little bit. And so I recommend you kind of front load your positions towards target one, because that's high frequency. And once that gets hit, then you have the option of tightening your stop up a little bit. And the logical place, real simple place to do this, and just jot a note down because I don't think I have this in the documentation yet, uh, is once you hit target one, just pull your stop up underneath the trade barrier, not to your break even point, right? But just underneath the trade barrier, a tick or two below that. You might have taken an entry depending on the instrument you're trading, a point or two past that, right? And so that would be your physical break even. But give the trade a little bit of wiggle room. And again, if you're taking off half off at the uh, first target, then pulling up a stop to your below your trade barrier, you're going to be knocked out with a small gain, most likely, right? Definitely at break even, and probably with a small gain. All right, so yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Oh, I was gonna say, I've heard in the past that you recommend that by the time that the target two gets hit, when the price is at target two, and you're taking a profit at target two, at that point you recommend definitely being at break even regardless on any remaining contracts. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great rule right there. Because here's the thing: once we're out at target one and target, especially target two, there's absolutely no reason you should take any kind of a loss. Period. So, and most of the time, it takes a real wild day to run up and hit target. Oh, but we see it. We run up and hit target two, and then the market reverses and goes down, and we actually get another alert on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've seen days like that. So but definitely, yeah, don't take any loss once you get to target two. So a good little rule, and we can put this in the documentation, is once you hit target one, if you want to be aggressive, go ahead and just slide your stop up below the trade barrier, right? Not to your physical, entry point. Once you hit target two, then you can definitely, move your stop to physical uh, break even, and then just sit tight until the system trailing stop passes where your stop is. Right,
Mm-hmm.
that's the easy rule on the system trailing stop. You can decide how quickly you want to get to break even, and then once you're at break even or around it, then just let the system stop pass you, and then jump on board that and follow that. So
Yeah. One of the things that I was going to sort of reiterate about you saying, like, someone that's new starting off slow, maybe trading on sim, is to give them the opportunity to experience different day types, right? Because the market sort of has a different kind of, flavor every day, and each session is going to play out a little bit differently. And then over time, over weeks, you see the market kind of morph from maybe being not volatile to extremely volatile, and you start seeing more long range days. And so it's really a good idea to sort of experience the system over multiple different types of sessions, so you sort of get a feel for how everything works.
yeah, I mean that's an excellent point. Uh, Definitely, that's one of the reasons to spend time with any kind of system or strategy you're going to follow. Spend time because several weeks on sim, maybe even, because that gives you exposure to different day types, and that really has a can have a big difference on how the system performs. And you need to get a feel for the fact that on a dull day, nothing's going to work. Doesn't matter if you're trying to scalp or you're trying to play a momentum system like this. Nothing really works. So you got to understand that a system like this drives off of the market energy, and the hotter the market, the more momentum, the better the system follows through, and we hit the targets, we go past the targets. But and the other main thing is get the exposure to the different market types, but also get through kind of the learning curve and don't lose a bunch of capital, so that again you avoid quitting the system. That's the biggest uh, problem with people that they literally they have this winning system in their hands, and you know they take a couple big positions on a few lousy days, and then it doesn't seem to work, and so you quit,
Yeah,
right?
yesterday was a really good example of sort of, sticking with the system, and I'll tell you why. Because initially, the momentum system gave a long. It got pulled into a long shortly after the open, and then that ended up reversing, and the market started dropping, and so it took a stop out. But then the short alert right after that went on to hit all three targets. I've got some screenshots here that I wanted to
Yeah.
look at, and so that's sort of and I did the math, and obviously it really more than made up for the stop out, right? I think maybe it hit target one and then faded back down or whatever, but generally speaking, I think that if the market starts off in one direction, and obviously we're playing a directional trending move, right? So whichever sort of direction we start going off of the open or shortly after the open, there's a good possibility on certain days. Now it doesn't happen that often, but certain days that can totally reverse, and then you get a big move in the opposite direction, and so that just kind of goes with just sticking with it, and so.
Yeah, the most important thing is to not try to second guess the system. The system knows better than you. The system knows better than me. It's quanted out to, be able to work through the market over the series. And, just a couple things about this approach. Again, we call this the power target, EZ system. You want to try to fly this on instrument panel, right? Don't try to second guess the algo. Don't try to interpret the market too much. Let the algo just do what the algo is designed to do, right? It quants out really nicely, right? If you just follow the numbers. And so that's a real important thing to get, and it takes time to develop that kind of trust. So that's why, again, you want to start off on the sim mode, then start off with just real light and build your size up gradually. And you'll see over the series, once you have a couple months following this, religiously following this, then you'll be able to understand exactly how it's able to, hook into, the grooves of the momentum in the market, and basically keep you in for the big moves. So this kind of an approach, uh, you know, we call it the EZ approach, and it's so that you can not have to worry about all the wiggles in the volatility. For instance, today, perfect example, the volatility at the scalper level was like, again, off the charts today, right? So if you were trying to scalp, it was like a minefield, right? We still got big moves, but trying to get into the entries, because the market was very jittery and spiking back and forth. But this system, you don't have to worry about any of that. You just jump in, you follow the system stops, and you follow the system targets, and you just let the market do what it's going to do, right? If the market's throwing a temper tantrum all day, but it's still going in your direction and hitting the targets, then you see the big benefit. And so this is one of the reasons that this is that's one of the big benefits of this type of a system. The other thing to keep in mind is this is very much the way the institutional level players play the market. All right. And I designed this based off of like institutional trading concepts and how they play the market profiles and whatnot. Now, I'm going to just tell you, this is about the slickest thing you're going to find anywhere. All right. This has been under design for well over 5 years to get to this point where we have it now. And this algo is like the best thing I've been able to come up with. All the design and all the testing and all the comparisons to like these institutional type algos and stuff too that I've studied. So this is like the best thing you're going to come across. And again, the main thing is you just got to follow it. All right. You just got to follow it and not drop out. And it'll end up working for you. Uh, anyway, you want to show one of those uh, screenshots?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to dig a little bit more into what we're talking about with these new enhancements here, and so I've got a few screenshots from yesterday, and that I think will really really sort of show people how these new enhancements have worked out here. So um, in the system notes in real time as it happens, right? And so, basically the bottom two lines, it starts down at the bottom and goes up, but the bottom two lines here are what you see when you get the alert, and when the alert is filled, you'll see these next two lines pop in simultaneously, right? So you get like yesterday, we got this is the YM, by the way, the short alert at 29201. So once there was a 1 minute close past that, then these next two lines here at 1117 got written immediately, where it gives you all three targets and it shows the initial stop, which is super cool the way that it's doing that. And this is just a real good sort of, it's a concise snapshot here of the new enhancements. So what you're going to get is the target 1, target 2, and target 3. And so, if you were playing like sort of with an ATM strategy on three contracts, literally you could set those targets and have your stop in and basically go get a cup of coffee, right? You come back and trail the stop up, trail the stop up. And so this is what it looks like. Now, when the targets get hit, it's actually going to print a line with a timestamp, Eastern time, and that's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, and in this example, you can see how quickly all three of those targets got hit. We had a kind of a runaway market to hit all those three targets. Sometimes it takes, half the session to hit all the targets, right, Bill?
Oh,
S-
absolutely. And that's
Yes.
another important point is that, going back to each session being different, some sessions like today the market dropped out of the bottom of the range, we got a fill and it was at the first two targets pretty quick too.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's other days that just, price just meanders around and kind of drifts up and down, and it's like uh, it's like watching the grass grow. It takes quite a while to get through these targets. Sometimes that final target won't even get hit till like right before the close. So, yeah, the fact that you got these three targets. Now, the other thing I want to mention, if you're also playing any of the scalper uh, channels, like with the ES or the NQ or the YM. So, as a matter of fact, probably in the next enhancement, I'm going to get that out to go out in the system notes for the scalper as well. We might as well utilize those because those are useful target levels to play even if you're scalping. So let's say that you know playing off the scalper algo, you take a long, and then you notice your, T1 is 3 points up. There's your logical place to put your limit order uh, uh, on your exit, right?
Hmm.
So you can utilize these same targets. So that'll be like in the very next enhancement. I'll get that out in for the scalpers as well.
Very cool. I wanted to make a quick comment. Someone noted that the screen looks a little bit blurry on the show, but I am actually recording this, and so on the recording, everything will look crystal clear. I wanted to take a look at something else here, Jeffrey. I have another screenshot from yesterday with the NQ, and I thought this would be something that would be useful for new users, and anyone following the system notes probably knows this already, but just to kind of go over this, because I don't know that we've actually, now that we've enhanced these notes, we haven't really done a whole lot with this. And so here's what I wanted to point out is that sometimes you will get an alert, like this is yesterday on the NQ. There was a short alert, and you see it printed out on the line there, um, but it was never triggered. There was never a 1 minute close past the trade barrier, right? And so the idea of the 1 minute close past the trade barrier is to keep us from sort of getting faked out on just like a split second poke out of the range, or just a sort of an anomaly. You see them all the time. And so obviously what we're looking for is a breakout of the dynamic trigger range that can carry in one particular direction. And so that's what the 1 minute close prevented us from getting sucked into a short here. And then you can see a little bit later in the day, the market started going in the other direction, poked out of the top of the range, right? This one wasn't triggered either, right? And so basically what you're seeing here is a lot of zigzag action at the beginning of the day yesterday, and then finally, the price broke out of the range here um, on the NQ at 96.8550, and then you got the 1 minute close past the barrier, and that's when these two lines printed, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, good point. Uh, One thing to keep in mind, and so the dynamic trigger range on the momentum channels, the dynamic trigger range, the range high and the range low, that's going to be your 5 minute opening price range. Now, the real reason that's in there is to give you folks a reference point to work off of, right? Instead of just, otherwise we just have like a blank piece, blank software until like an alert popped in out of the blue, and it'd wake you out of your stupor, and you'd go, "What's happening? What's happening?" So having that 5 minute range in there gives you a visual reference point, and so you always know, like, what is the market, where are we headed? Are we trying to break out of the top of the range? But here's the thing: just playing a 5 minute breakout, is not a winning strategy, right? If it was, that's all you could have to do. So obviously that doesn't, that is a losing strategy.
Yeah, well, you can tell by the difference between the actual alert price and where the low of the range was here.
Right. And so the point is that the real trade alerts that the algo is computing off of, like, basically some background market profile stuff that I've put together, uh, that gets computed. That's going to be outside the 5 minute range at some point, but that's a much finer tuned level. And so you're going to see days where, just like this example here, we get the computed trade price barrier, and we just never can close past it. And in other words, that's how finely tuned that level is. It knows exactly where the resistance is, and the price just can't even get past it. So this is an example of that, basically. And so, once the market's able to finally break out of that level, is where we get heightened, action, and heightened probability of, like, forward movement.
Yeah, the
So
other cool thing about the dynamic trigger range, like having that plotted on your chart and looking at the range, is that if the price like starts to poke out of the top of the range and then comes back in and it's floating around in the middle of the range, then there's not going to be an alert. So when the price is trapped inside the range, that's the no trade zone, right? And so that's where having the visual reference point with a horizontal line at the range high and a horizontal line at the range low helps you out, because if you're sitting there and you're watching the price sort of chopping around inside the range, you know that basically what the system's looking for is a range breakout. And then once the price starts to move out of that range, then it's going to start looking for an optimal entry point, as you say. And so, yeah, I thought it would be a good idea to give an example here of alerts that were not actually triggered in and talk about the 1 minute close. I have one more screenshot here from yesterday, and this also kind of goes hand in hand with the new enhancement that you've made to the software. And this is actually the same screenshot we were just looking at, and this is after the trailing stop finally got tagged. But it's kind of cool because you can see, that it got triggered in here at 11:11, and then you can see the progression where it hit all three targets. Interestingly enough, yesterday's move was so quick and forceful that it hit all the targets before the trailing stop ever even moved, right? And then so, after target 3 got hit, and this is the NQ again, the trailing stop continued to move throughout the session until it finally got tagged there. But so now in the system notes, you're really getting the play by play, which is very cool. Every time the trailing stop moves, you're going to get a system note on that. And so you can kind of, follow the progression throughout the day. You always know where the trailing stop is. And
It's basically an archive of all the action of throughout the session, play by play. And a couple nice things about it. Let's say that you don't trade a certain day, like you're not able to. You can still come in and after the session, come in and see what the system did, right? And you can go in and basically copy those notes out. Just select and Control C, and paste it into a text file or notepad or something, and then you can re kind of reenact the session on your charts for the day and see what happened, right? The other thing is, let's say that you're actually playing the system that day and you just get called away for a little bit. You can come back and you can see maybe you missed a couple trailing stop moves or whatever, no big deal. You just adjust your stop to where it needs to go at the current time, but you can kind of see what went on while you were gone, right? So and then the other thing is, just if you are sitting there just watching, this is just confirmation of what's happening real time, right? So that you're not missing anything, like if you hear an audio alert and there's a change on the screen and then you don't look quick enough, you'd be like, well, what changed?
mhm.
That type of thing. So it's documented in the notes. So this should help everybody out quite a bit going forward.
Here's an actual live look at this alert software today. I have it running live on this machine. So today was a really good day. And another thing that we haven't touched on yet that is really something something that you could maybe talk about for a minute here is the dynamic targets, right? Because these targets today, right? And here's something really interesting. Let me just talk about what transpired today. Okay, so there was obviously the system comes on. Whoops, the system comes online 5 minutes after the open, right? You see that on that bottom line there. Oh, there we go. And what happened today was really interesting. So the trade price barrier was the 33.50.50. That was the alert price to go short. And when we got the 1 minute close past the barrier, like the market started breaking down, um, it actually, the close of the 1 minute bar that triggered us in was 33.49.75, right? And so that's where it makes sense not to sweat a few ticks, because obviously, there's always going to be a little bit, sometimes it's a tick, sometimes it's 2 ticks or 3 ticks. I've even had days, Jeffrey, where you get the alert, you get the 1 minute close past the barrier, and then you click to enter at market, and sometimes the next 1 minute bar like opens a couple of ticks in your favor past the barrier. It can even be a tick or two. And so it's really important not to kind of sweat the small stuff if you get a few ticks past the barrier. So today's a good example. So anyway, here's my point. 33.49.75 was the actual fill price, right? And this target one here was actually 4.25 points. This was 4.25 points past what you would have got filled at. Target two was 10.25 points past what you would have got filled at, right? And target three, which it actually hit target three. Look at that. Was 16.25 points, 16.25 points past your actual fill. And if you add those up on the ES today, hitting all three targets, you're talking a net point gain of 30.75 points today on the software, which you can see the data up here, right? And so just so happens the trailing stop finally got tagged at 33.48.50, which is basically a little over 10 points past the what you'd got filled at, right? So you always talk about when the market makes these significant moves, how this system is designed to is designed to capture these types of moves. Well, here you go. Today, as we're doing this live, we had the one trade here was basically a net gain of over 30 points, and so that kind
Right.
of that's going to make up for the days where it only hit target one, and then maybe came back to the stop in that. So it's really going to capitalize on these trending days like today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, traders bragging about being able to capture a point or two every day in the market. Uh, with a system like this, you capture the big moves, and dynamic targets are computed based on, again, market profile at the open. The formulas use a little bit of the market profile at the open, the first 5 minute range, and it also uses some pre-market data as well, and it's able to compute out the targets. And basically, what happens is once we are able to break out of that morning range and the market can pick a direction. See, the whole point is, everybody's dream is, oh, what if I could just drop, plop some contracts in at the open and let them work throughout the day and cash in towards the close, right? That's everybody's dream. This is as close to that dream as you're going to get, because this plays that whole concept in a real logical way. And so what we're trying to do is get plant a seed early on in the session and have it develop out over, the rest of the session. On big long range directional days, you'll see that those are like textbook examples. It just plays out like a charm. We hit all three targets. Market even keeps going. The trailing stop can even get bigger gains. And so the point is, you will experience days like that if you are playing the system, right? And so again, we get back to, don't try to second guess the system too much, because otherwise you miss days like that,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Because I mean, you never know how the session is going to play out when you're first starting off during the day. And so if you think, oh well, boy, I just don't think it's going to be able to make it to target two, or I mean, days like today are exactly why you just basically want to stick to everything.
I have thunk myself out of like so many big winning trades. It's crazy,
Yeah.
You find all these reasons why, nope, it's not a good reason to take this trade, right? And then it it fills and the market blasts off. Yeah, the thing is we've got the news factor that comes in and causes the market to move. Market, I've said this before, about 70% of the market is technically driven, and then probably about 30% is uh,
News driven.
news driven, right? And so the news can come, and so we can have a week where we start off with 2 days that are dull and choppy and maybe some stops getting hit. And so imagine your mindset Wednesday is like, oh, this market sucks and things aren't working. But Wednesday there's some kind of news event and the market just goes gangbusters, and it makes everybody happy as long as you're playing the system. It makes everything up, and then some, and the system self-corrects. So that's the moral of the story is, do yourself a favor, start off really small and light, but just follow the numbers. Pretend like you're flying an airplane in the clouds, on instrument panels.
Another interesting thing about today is it's the perfect day because it wrapped up, basically before lunchtime, and that doesn't always happen. I mean, depending on the day, like you said earlier, it can take, it can be like mid-afternoon to get anywhere near target two. It just depends on the session, but the ideal day, like today, is when, you get your entry. You get in there, you're able to sell a contract at target one, sell a contract at target two, and then, get your stop up and hits target three, you're done for the day, and you just go to lunch, right? So, what do you think about? And I'm kind of torn on this, but I sort of recommend that if you get another alert in the afternoon, don't even worry about it. Especially if you have a day like today where you've captured 30 points, there'd be no reason in the world that you wouldn't just want to, shut it down and call it a day, right? But a lot of days, you might get two alerts in the morning, which means that maybe the market changed directions or whatever, and those tend to work out. Like yesterday, but I have seen cases where, something weird happens in the afternoon and you get an alert like late in the day. A long time ago when we were testing this, there was an alert like literally 10 minutes before the market closed. And I think it, bears reiterating that you don't want to try and catch one because the software is programmed to give an alert under certain circumstances. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I could put a timer in there that says don't give any alerts an hour before, but I want this to just be a dynamic system. I mean, the system's going to call the levels out in the market. Now, how long it takes the market to work through those levels is the market's, deal. So there will be, like you said, some days we get these wacky, but a good rule of thumb is this: is if you have a big winning day, like you hit some of the targets and maybe you get taken out with a profit at the trailing stop, and you're out, call it a win and shut down for the day, even if another alert would come. Now, on a day where, let's say, we have a stop out early on, like a quick stop out, and the market's reversing, then stick with the system, play the second alert, because those are like those big, like, reversal type of days that we get sometimes, and the second move is the big one, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're gun shy, you sit out and miss what makes everything better again. So
Yeah, well, these new system notes, I mean, super cool. Obviously, this is the live software, so it's got this note about the meeting, but you can see, even after the trailing stop, or I'm sorry, after the target three got hit, you can see where the trailing stop has continued to ratchet up and ratchet up there. And then finally, at right before we started the live show here, finally, right before that, the trailing stop got hit at 33.4850, which, like I said before, was basically a couple of points in favor of the trade anyway. So if someone had like more than three contracts, if you had four contracts and you were holding that very last one, you still did okay. Got a couple of points on that one too. So
yeah, the great thing about this system, just to reiterate before we wrap it up here, is I designed this again after institutional models of how they play off of market levels and whatnot, and they basically try to play the market, the momentum direction for the session. uh, that's a part of the design. But another great thing about this design is, if you're like a busy person and a total amateur at trading, this system is for you. You you do not have to learn fancy moves in the market and fancy setups and how to interpret the technicals, and you just follow the numbers. So literally, you can be a super busy person and just kind of like follow these numbers and go about your business around the house or the office or whatever, and you're going to be playing the markets at an institutional level, and you're not thinking about much other than just following the numbers. So then the other important thing to mention is that this is a standalone system which can be used with any of the trading platforms out there, as you know. Uh, doesn't matter if you're in TradeStation or Thinkorswim or Ninja or any of the AMP futures and Sierra charts. You can follow this system. If you do happen to be a Ninja user, we have the add-on chart indicators that plot out the levels for you and show the targets and the trailing stop and all that. So, and those are just included in with your membership. We have that for Ninja 7 and Ninja 8. And so if you happen to be a Ninja user, then you've got that available also. You have the alert software plus the on chart indicator. And that's it, Bill.
yeah, one other quick thing that I just wanted to mention was that I've noticed that I I primarily follow the ES momentum system, but I also, especially with these new notes, I've been kind of peeking in on the other ones, the NQ and the YM, and I've noticed that they're calibrated a little bit differently. And the market moves a little bit differently with these other instruments. I think it was yesterday. It was either yesterday or the day before. The YM hit all three targets. Boom, boom, boom. And the ES only had made it to target two before the trailing stop, caught up or whatever. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. And same with the NQ. I've seen days recently where the NQ seemed like, and like I say, I don't know if this is a function of the way that the markets themselves were behaving or the calibrations of the software, but something cool about the YM is, and I've told people this, that I think that the YM is like sort of a happy medium between the micro contracts and the full size contract because, it's $5 a point. And so I would encourage people to maybe even follow the YM, when you're getting started or something, if you want to kind of experiment a little bit, because the YM is it's a good instrument, and it's easy to sort of get your head around because it trades in whole numbers, full points, right? And the Dow being up here at 29,000 can make some pretty significant moves, right? I mean, it's nothing for the Dow to be up or down 100 points. Like right now, it's down a couple of hundred points or whatever, and so at $5 a point, that really adds up. And so you can go in these system notes and kind of reenact what happened today and look at the chart, and you'll see that today was a huge day for the YM too.
Right. The other thing to mention is that, if you're going to become a real active trader and you want to play the market in the two main ways to play, either, scalp, either be a super scalper on the micro level, or play these momentum moves where you're trying to stay in, for the session, you can trade both of them. All right. And so, but you just have to pick, one symbol to play with each algo. So, Bill's recommendation of the YM, that'd be a great. All three of these markets, the momentum system works great. So it's just whatever your flavor. If you're a Nasdaq person, then go with the Nasdaq. Uh, but you have the option of picking one of the symbols to play this momentum system, and then you can pick one of the other symbols to, be a scalper. And so maybe you prefer scalping like the NQ or the ES, then of course, then go ahead and play the momentum system with the YM, right? So
Hmm.
uh, it's a great way to diversify yourself a little bit, get more action, and be able to play the market in the two main ways.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you that these new system notes are fantastic because I've always said, pay attention to the system notes. You get the play-by-play action and all that, and so I mean, you've really sort of taken it to the next level now with the idea that it's going to identify when the targets are going to hit or targets get hit. It identifies where the trailing stop moves. Everything can be, is noted in here automatically, and that's a huge, huge improvement.
Yeah, and then and on top of the system notes, you always have the trade traction up above the alert level that shows you the negative and the positive traction. So that can give you an idea how many points
Sure.
that
I was
the
gonna. I was actually gonna point that
yeah.
out
Go
earlier
ahead.
on. I'm sorry. On yesterday's YM here. You can see right up there. I actually had somebody ask me what those numbers meant, and yeah, you want to explain that real quick, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, that's max traction. And what that means is once we get the 1 minute confirmation, then we get the confirmed 1 minute entry on the ES, for instance, and then the market moves, 2 points back against you. You'd see a -2 up there, right? Because that's max negative traction. So that's like your max drawdown on the trade that you've incurred. But then, as the trade moves in your favor, it's going to show the max price move in the favor past the trade barrier. So let's say that the trade makes a big momentum move to the upside now and makes move 5 points past the trade barrier. Even though you're still in the trade and maybe the trade's backed off a little bit, and maybe you only have like a 3 point gain now, it's still going to show you that max traction up there, the 5 points. That was the maximum amount of forward movement that we got past the trade barrier. So that just gives you an eyeball of like the the degree of the momentum, on the trade, what's happening.
Very good, very
Yeah.
good. So, yeah, well, hey, it was really interesting. I've been playing around and following these notes, and I think they've made it a lot easier to sort of follow along with everything. So, yeah, I've talked to people that they get the software, they get the indicator and that, and they don't even open up the system notes. And so, it's this was a really good little casual group meeting we had today to make everybody aware of the enhancements to the notes. And so we appreciate everything that you've done here, Jeffrey. And I think that we should probably go ahead and call it a meeting, and then we'll see everybody next time. Hey, thanks a lot, Jeffrey. Appreciate it.
Yeah, very good. We'll talk to you next time.